Hi, my name's Todd, and I thought it was about time to do a walkthrough of my 2006 Toyota Sienna. It's a camper that I've worked on for several years, or a couple of years now, and it's iterated over the past. I started off with just a Coleman cot and a mattress on top of that and totes underneath, and I've slowly modified it, changed it. I went from a 200 flexible solar panel on the outside, portable, went to a 200 watt on the roof, rigid panel, and then now I've moved to 4 100 watt panels on the roof, which has changed kind of a lot of the things that I do on the inside as well. I have a few unique things here. I hope there's something that's helpful to someone out there, and I'll start with the walkthrough. I'll start with the outside, and then I'll move to the inside and work my way through the van from the front to the back, covering as many things as I can think of. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them to the best I can, or maybe refer you to someone who's more expert than I am. But anyways, here we go. So starting from the outside, the main thing that you will see is there's 400 watts of solar on the roof. I'll zoom in here and try to take a look at it as best I can. You can see I have 4 100 watt solar panels on the roof. They're Renogy panels, and I've attached them using an L bracket that attaches to the factory rails, and the solar panels are then bolted to those L brackets. Moving over to the back of the van, we can take a look at how I ran the wires from the solar panels into the cabin area. So my solar panels are wired in series, so all 4 are actually wired in series, and the wire for the solar panels then goes down through a gap in the top of the hatch. I'll open up the hatch here so that you can take a look at the wire. It moves down this channel underneath the hatch using duct tape to hold it on, and goes through a gap in the taillight assembly, and then it is routed through to a hole that I drilled from behind the taillight assembly. From there, the wire is routed to the battery. All right, starting at the driver's seat, I have this little cubby down here where I keep my DEET and sunscreen and gloves. And then, let's see, also in the front I have a mount for my phone so I can film while I'm driving down the road. And then I also have another one that's more for map mode. I have on my seat typically a lot of warm weather or cold weather clothing or things like that. Sometimes I'll put blankets there, various things. Down on the floor I have my dirty clothes bag, which is a hefty bag. I also have a crock pot, which I can use with my battery system to cook food during the day. This cloth, which I have tied to the handhold on the right side, on the passenger side, I run it all the way across to the driver's side, and I run it up to this I believe a sunglasses holder. I'm not really sure what Toyota was thinking when they made this. But anyways, I take the cloth and I run it across and I stick it in the little gap right there. And I won't do it right now because I can't do it one-handed. And I pinch it in there, and basically that gives me a piece of cloth curtain that goes all the way across, and that works pretty nice for at night to block out people's view and things like that. I also put a sunscreen in the window. Moving back a little bit, I have between the 2 front seats, I have a it's either 21 or 23 quart refrigerator by Bouge RV. This one's already lasted me a year, which is already better than the previous one I had, which I don't know what brand it was, but this one seems to be working pretty well. It was under $200, so I'm quite happy with it. It fits just perfectly between the Toyota seats with the center console removed. I did remove this arm because it was getting in the way of opening the lid, and I wanted to move my seat up. I could push it all the way back and then it wouldn't be in the way, but it actually worked out better to remove that arm, since of course no one's really using it anyways. And if you're interested, I actually set this refrigerator to 34 degrees, which makes it basically cycle between 34 and 38 degrees, which works pretty well. It doesn't usually freeze my foods, and it keeps them cold, very, very cold. I don't put my vegetables in here, and I'll get to that in a little later as to what I do with my vegetables. It's a 12-volt refrigerator, so I run the cord from here back to my battery, which you'll see in a bit. Moving just behind the passenger seat, you can see where I keep my Starlink, as well as a table. I actually, that table I can put in 4 different places in my van. So one of the places I use my table is where I sit when I'm sitting in the van. That mattress, that chair right there is actually a tri-fold mattress that I've folded into a chair shape, and I sit there and I can put this table there if I want, put my laptop on it or whatever I need, or my dinner if I'm eating. And there's a little pole that basically inserts into a hole on the bottom, and that's what holds it up, as well as using these mounting brackets that I'll put a link in the description for. And these brackets basically fit together, and this will fit into that location. It also fits into 3 other locations I have on the van, one of which is right here by the side door. You can see I have one of them right here. So that's location number 2 for the table. There are 2 others on the outside of the van, on either side, as well as the back. Anyway, so I can cook with my cooker just slightly outside the van. It helps with keeping the fumes and smells out of the van a little bit. Sometimes I cook inside, but if it's okay, I will actually cook this way too. So one really unique part of my van is I built this raised platform out of 2x6s. It's a frame, and it makes it perfectly level inside. It does lose 6 inches, so that's 5.5 inches plus the 1/2 inch of plywood, actually maybe a little more than 6 inches. And I installed plywood hatches throughout, and what I did is I put hinges on those. So you can see I put hinges that are attached to the 2x6s and to the plywood. And I have storage all the way, so there's my clothes. I have storage from all the way from the front, going all the way to the back, the part you can't see underneath my seat. And jumping to the back here, here's the back of the van, the same hatches. You can see there's the same table connection. So moving to the back, these are the same hatches that I have in the middle part and front of the van, except for these particular hatches are much deeper, because this is where the rear seats would have folded down, but I removed the rear seats. So like there's 8 gallons of water bottles there, propane, a propane stove, and I still have space. I have all my bedding in one of these hatches on this side. I won't show that to you, but it has all my bedding, down comforter, all that kind of stuff. Here is my emergency toilet, but I actually just mostly use it as a trash can. And let's see, I have a TV tray that I've clipped to the shelving unit, and there's the legs for it, and you know, the usual stuff: axe, first aid kit, various tapes, bungee cords, all that kind of stuff. I have a day pack for going on hikes because I like to hike. I have a USB charged fan. Those are great. I highly recommend them. So on top of my hatches, I have these gym mats, and this is about a 1/2 inch of rubber foam padding, and this is great because I move around on my knees all the time in here, and this works perfectly. These actually, the story behind these is these are actually from my daughter. We used to keep our front room. We had the entire front room covered with these kind of mats so that my daughter could play in the front room because we had a hardwood floor. Okay, immediately behind the driver's seat, I have this wooden enclosure where I actually keep a number of old coffee cans, and I use that for pee. So I'm an old man and I pee a lot in the night, and I can't get up and go outside every time I wish to pee in the night, so I actually fill up these and dispose of them the next day. This is a sink enclosure that I built. It's also behind the driver's seat. It has a Dometic USB chargeable faucet. It works most of the time. It works quite well. It's double tap to start and single tap to stop. And it's a nice sink. It It's a nice sink because it has this net drain, so you can basically put a net in there and catch anything before it goes down into your gray water tank. Let's see. While we're here, that's my coffee. While we're here, this is my electric kettle. I use this all the time to make coffee, especially. And what else? On this, I also put a little spice rack that I made, as well as something to hold my utensils. I did have to put some bungee cords around it to make sure they didn't come flying out. These Gear crush lights, very nice. I charge them in the daytime and I use them at night. Those are actually my main light. Is I have 2 of these, and they work quite well. Moving on to my shelving unit. I built this. It's attached to the sink unit. Has a bunch of shelves. It has boxes on the top. Like there's one box dedicated to coffee, one to spices, my coffee grinder, tortillas, etc. There's one to hygiene, has my toothbrush and all kinds of things, shaving cream, shaving paraphernalia, that kind of stuff. Another one with cans and walnut milk, things like that I use for my coffee. And then a tissue box. And then I have my paper towel roll, which is on a basically a bungee cord that goes all the way across, and then I put all my clips on that same bungee cord. And moving down, I got my dishes, I got some camp suds soap and some more spices, and then some oil and vinegar, and there's actually a Dr. Bronner's back there that I use sometimes. And then moving over, I've got, a speaker and some exercise bands. I've got wet wipes and plastic cups that I don't usually use, but sometimes I use them. And then the other last bin over here is for nuts and coffee, different kinds of coffee. So I have a grinder. I have a very tiny little grinder that I use sometimes. I like to grind coffee, not all the time, but sometimes I do. And so I have a few different coffees that I like to grind. Now I have another video of this, but also in this shelving unit is this XPS foam crisper, vegetable crisper. And I put my vegetables in there with a couple of soda cans, and it keeps it from overheating. It works really, really well, because if I put my vegetables in the refrigerator, they become limp, all wilted. And so that temperature works out really well, and then my vegetables last a long time. And then let's see. Next is the battery. It's a Blue Eddy AC200L. It has 2,048 watt hours, and it can put out, I think at least 2,000 watts, but I don't usually use that high of an output at any time. But I do use a induction stove, which I have under the sink. There's an induction stove tucked into here, and also a very long extension cord, thick, long extension cord is back in there as well in case I want to run it outside the van. This block of wood that I use for holding my table up is also how I keep this stuff I put these little pins on the bottom and put some holes, and if I can find it, there we go, one-handed. That stops the induction stove from just flying out while I'm driving. Moving down below that, also under the sink counter, is my Starlink router and power supply. This is the 3rd generation Starlink, something I plug in when I need to use it, and when I don't, it stays unplugged. And moving back around to the Starlink, there is the Starlink again. We talked about that. In order for me to use the Starlink, I've routed the cabling basically around and into the back of the sink enclosure, and there's a huge coil of cable if I want to go far from the van, but mostly I just put this on the roof of the van, and so I have enough cable, easy to pull out, to put it on the roof of the van. If I need to go farther, there's a cable behind the sink enclosure that I can pull out, a big coil, and I can make it go a little ways away. So if I want to park in the shade and put the Starlink a little ways away, I can do that. So there's my trifold mattress, which is my bed, as well as my seat during the day. I can reconfigure it in different positions, move things around, during the day. You saw it earlier with my table. I can sit at it to eat, to work. And then if I need to, I can fold it down. And I'm going to try to do this with my camera in my hand. Probably can't, but watch. Like that. And now it's a bed. And so I take my pillow, which is a Sobagata Japanese pillow. So it's basically got buckwheat hulls inside. I really like that kind of pillow. And I get out my bedding, which is in that hatch back there, and I have a bed. Coming out one last time to look at the sink enclosure. We can see the back of the sink, and there's my faucet, Dometic. I have two 4-gallon jugs. One has fresh water, the other one is gray water. The gray water is hooked up to the bottom of the sink drain. You can see my Starlink cable. You can also see the back of where I store my Starlink router and power supply. Sorry about my fingers again being in the video. And let's see, I also have a vacuum that I use, a portable vacuum, to try to keep it relatively neat inside. And let's see, a little bit of bleach. This concludes my walkthrough video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments and I'll do my best to give an answer.